Hey everyone, and welcome to the ComaCast. We thank you for joining us here for another episode. Today we're going to be talking about a topic I think that probably usually affects everyone, or at least gay guys in particular. It's their voice, what is known as, I guess we'll say the quote, the gay voice. Is it real? Is it not real? And then also a lot of times people get misgendered on the phone and in drive-thrus. We'll talk about all of that.
Literally
your whole life.
Yeah.
We'll talk about all of that coming up. And of course, if you're listening to this on podcast audio, we're available on YouTube, so you can watch us in video and actually see us. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we're available on anywhere you can get your podcasts on the ComaCast.
Podcasting from the Lone Star State in Southern California, you're listening to the Coma Podcast with Cody and Matt.
We're going to start with some icebreakers, a little game. Pick one: pizza, wings, tacos, sushi. We have to get rid of one of those.
No wings.
Okay. Okay. I would get rid of sushi because... Next one.
Okay.
You have to get rid of one of these.
All right.
Okay. Here they are. 4 things: Oreo, donuts, Pop-Tarts, Cheetos.
Cheetos.
Okay. Oh, that's a hard one for me. I don't know. I like them all, but I'd probably get rid of Pop-Tarts. I used to be obsessed with Pop-Tarts.
Yeah,
and I would eat
Pop-Tarts is pretty low on the list.
Okay, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Felipe, Ryan Gosling, or Zac Efron. I couldn't think of another Ryan, but Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Felipe, Zac Efron, Ryan Gosling.
This is a difficult choice, but not for the reasons you think.
Oh.
I feel like probably Ryan Gosling.
Okay.
Not
I would
that he's
also
done
get
anything in particular. Like, sorry, Ryan Gosling. If you ever see this, it is not personal. I kind of just rolled the dice in my own head.
I would also get rid of Ryan Gosling. I love Zac Efron, love Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Felipe. I don't know, Ryan Gosling. The Notebook was great, but
that was like 15 years ago.
So we're going to be talking about, we'll say the quote, gay voice. When I was researching some things about it, it's an interesting topic. There's a lot to it, and ultimately, gay voice doesn't actually exist. But we'll talk about that coming up next. So I have a question, Matt. In our conversations all the time, do you think I sound gay?
Am I allowed? If I wish I had some control. So when we do this, Cody is technically the host. Yep, Cody hosts. Take that for what you will. And if I could like put hashtag bottom across your side of the screen, I totally would.
I think so.
But I wouldn't say I know exactly. I mean, we're just being playful, but it really does exist. And there's a lot behind this. So you picked this topic not knowing this about me, but so I had speech therapy as a kid, which we've talked about openly, but my actual speaking voice is not here. It's it's several steps lower, but because I speak quickly at that tone and I stutter, I'm more likely to stutter and make mistakes at this range because it really doesn't feel natural. But I spent so many years training to talk at this level for people to properly hear me, because when I speak in what would be considered like my birth voice, people say I mumble, they say they can't hear me, that it's more, they don't like it. So I think, I had a lot of speech therapy to change that. And then it was always speak up. You need to project. You're not projecting. Maybe just leave me alone and let me be myself. But the problem was it changed it entirely into this. And then at one point I got very, very sick when I was 24, 25. And I had laryngitis, bronchitis, and a sinus infection. And it just ruined my vocal cords. And so I couldn't speak up at all. So the first voice to return to me after like a month was my normal speaking voice, my much lower voice. And where, I mean, I still very much have an effeminate twang to my voice and I'm Southern, but I definitely didn't sound like the Matt you would typically recognize on a phone call or like this. I couldn't whisper or speak up, yell, scream, cry, sing, none of that for probably 6 months before about 80% of it came back. And it was probably a year before all of it came back. If I tried to whisper, my voice would just cut out. If I tried to speak up, my voice would it just wasn't there. And it was a very strange experience. And a lot of people growing up, of course, I heard about my gay voice. I heard about how effeminate I sounded and that I should change that. But when you're already speaking up and you already have nasal issues, one, I was born in Ohio. So I learned to speak in Ohio. I didn't move to Florida till I was 10. So I have this like Midwestern Southern twang. So I speak through my nose and then with a Southern twang. And let me tell you, I irritated the hell out of my family and everybody around me because, you know, that is the most annoying voice ever. And then, of course, when I came out, people were like, oh, we knew by your voice. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of those things.
Or being called a woman on the phone my whole life. That too.
Yeah. Like what we say is we'll say, quote, gay voice. It's not really a real thing if you actually look at it. Right. You know, it's a stereotype that there is placed upon men. And then some people embody that stereotype and others don't. But like when you look at it, sometimes you can have straight men who do talk more effeminate. And sometimes you can have gay men talk very, what we would say, straight talk. So it isn't necessarily, you know, if you're gay, you're going to talk a certain way or whatever. There's a lot that goes into maybe why that's happening. And there's been a lot of research, actually. And I think, Matt, it's kind of like what you were actually talking about, and that what we say is the gay voice, I guess. When you like study it, it has like lots of S's, sometimes a lot of over exaggeration in the speaking, and then also a lot of enunciation is what they have found in researching that. So I think it kind of does make sense.
One of my
what you were talking about
was speaking with correct S sound. I still struggle with it. If I say like the letter S by itself, you'll see me I'm counting my syllables when I talk, and it helps me not stutter. I've found it was a really great way to help me in my adult life. I wish I discovered it as a kid because now it like helps me so much. But when I say S's by themselves, I've just struggled not to put my tongue between my teeth because that's how I made the S sound as a kid, because it sound in my head, it sounds right. Even saying it properly now, it doesn't sound right in my own ears and in my head. But when I hear a playback, I can tell that like, oh, I said it correctly, you know, but it doesn't feel natural to do that. But even though that is the correct acceptable way to say it, because however my brain is wired, that is not normal to me. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And, you know, it was always written off to having a cleft lip and palate. You know, you have some speech issues there, but I'm so glad you brought this topic up because it's something that we get made fun of viciously by people. And especially growing up, it's like, oh, you sound like a fairy. You know, I don't know if you ever had that said to you, but I've had that said to me many times.
Yeah, I mean,
and I worked in the auto industry for a long time. And let me tell you, body shops and people that are used to dealing with very super masculine men do not take it well from somebody who sounds like me when I tell them that I know you're lying. No, you're wrong. No, this, they do not take it well at all. Based on the sound of my voice, they assume I'm soft or super young. Today I'm slightly congested because it's allergies. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I think the pushback is wild.
Yeah, I think that is one thing. I mean, I feel like you hear it a lot or see it a lot in people if they're like making phone calls or doing orders like at a drive-through or different like that, being misgendered. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, that's thank you, ma'am. Or is that all, ma'am? And stuff like that.
How many times have you just kind of rolled with it to not?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think also into your perspective and working in car industry like that, I think there can be times where gay men at times can be taken advantage of when they go to like get oil change or this and that. If you do have that effeminate voice, because
it's exhausting.
You know, they feel like you don't have any knowledge of it.
Well, there's a stereotype that women don't know anything about cars.
We talked about at the beginning how it's not like a real thing; it's a stereotype. And then in the case of the straight man, he was straight. He just had a more effeminate voice, and people latched onto that. When there has been done some research on this topic, they basically have found that there is no significant difference in the frequency, intensity, or even the vowel space between straight men and gay men. There were some fundamental frequency differences, but when they looked at it, they basically found that gay sounding voices had a higher intensity than straight sounding ones. Also, on average, gay men spoke with an average intensity of 82 decibels, while straight men spoke with an average decibels of only 79. So gay men tend to speak a little bit louder and a little bit more quicker pace. But then also,
we need a study about gay men. Do we really walk faster? I'm going to say yes. And so here's my study. It's a twin study, actually. So David is a twin. He has a straight twin. And so David is dark hair, dark eyes, 6'3". His brother is blonde hair, blue eyes, also 6'3". They're about the same build, approximately. And when he was here about a year and a half ago, 2+ years ago now. It was pre-COVID. We went to the mall. David was on lunch from work, and there was a food court down the street. We're like, oh, let's just do that. So typically when you get there, we kind of need to book it a little bit because we need to get there so David has as much time to eat on his break as possible.
Yeah.
And his brother walked like he was, like kind of that straight guy swag walk, like first day of school and everybody showing off their new outfit.
There was no purpose to his 28. Walking.
And yeah, that's exactly like that. And straight guys everywhere do that. I see it in the gym a lot. Like a lot. Guys walk from one end to the other, or like different pieces of equipment. And I'm not judging them. I'm just like, damn, pick up the pace. And like 9 people trying to get around them, and they're like and it's so frustrating to watch. But yeah, so David and I are like, let's go, Josh. Oh my fucking God. And Josh is just if you're not watching this probably sounds really weird, but I'm doing like my straight guy impression. I should like draw on a little like douchebag mustache on my face for this. But yeah, that's my twin study of talking and walking. And they do talk differently too. Despite being raised together with an older brother, they have an older brother or two. And his brother talks one very specific way, and then David talks a very specific way too. And they do not talk the same at all. But I would say they talk about the same pitch.
There's some other research that was done corresponding to this topic, and some research have identified that there may be some phonetic characteristics that may seem different in a man's voice that makes someone sound what we would say, quote, gay. But they think their best hunch on this is that gay men may subconsciously adopt certain female speech patterns. Now, that may be because they grow up with a lot of women, mother, sister, maybe father's out of the picture. A lot of gay people, their fathers are not in the picture at all. And so they may subconsciously take on those feminine characteristics, not even realizing that they are doing that.
I have a theory.
What is that?
Are you breathless to hear it?
I'm waiting and ready, as always.
Check out Coma Fans for $9.99 a month if you're curious about that last. Terms and conditions apply. I think that so as gays in the LGBTQ community, we get a lot kind of thrown at us. We are kind of we kind of run, some people more are like the intersection of masculine and feminine, right? I think that as we get older, and especially with like rising Gen Z, that people stop caring about looking a certain way, like that overly. Some people really are just the most bro sounding, people ever. That's just who they are. That's just what they sound like. and other people aren't, but they want to be, or they are afraid not to be. Like, you know, people in a family of like a bunch of siblings, and they're the softer voiced one. I think that as we get older, we're more comfortable with not sounding as masculine, so we're comfortable just being ourselves. And I think a lot more people are. I don't want to say. I think it's more normal to sound at a mix of masculine and feminine versus all the way one or the other. You know, I think it's actually more normal to run the middle, and maybe we're just more comfortable with our X chromosome.
Yeah.
You know, and
like, hey, Matt, what's up?
Whereas
how you doing?
Straight guys and some gay guys, you know, we do see a lot of internalized homophobia, misogyny within our own community. They're obsessed with their Y chromosome, and I'm just like, you know, if you had two of those, you wouldn't be alive, right? You know, unless you have an X to go with it.
Yeah, it's really a weird thing.
There's this really weird obsession, you know, with the whole let men be men, and it's like, I can like cars and also moisturizing my face. There is not.
And here's the thing, you're going to look younger than they are when they get old.
Right. And I'll still like cars.
Yes.
You know?
A win-win for you. I think you actually are right.
Pick up a magazine or open up an article and learn something new about a new model. You cannot go back and permanently undo 40 years of damage to yourself. But but on a serious note, I actually do think that it's a lot about being more comfortable with yourself and not trying to be a certain way. And I realize how it sounds after saying that I spent like 25 years being taught to speak up and out. So it feels like more like a variation of my voice. But when I'm tired or I don't feel good, or if you're in person with me especially, I tend to talk much more like myself because I don't have to make myself heard into a microphone. I do know that my natural speaking voice a lot of times isn't picked up by voice command, because voice commands tend not to work for me. So I have to speak up to be heard. So maybe everybody was right. But I will say, telling someone that their voice is actually annoying is damaging. You're silencing them, and you're saying the same thing. I hear it said to women. I hear it especially to Black women. I hear it said people that might have an accent or a thicker accent, and you're being told, you're telling them their voice is annoying and you don't want to hear them. Well,
yeah, I mean, it happened.
Your voice is annoying too. Shut up, you know?
It happened a lot, like when Hillary Clinton was running for president. All the articles were always talking about how her voice was annoying, how she was always screaming and yelling. And
right.
It's like
the stereotype of the angry woman. And I have listened to her speak tons of times, and I never heard her. She spoke in like complete coherent sentences. And then when other people from other administrations have spoken, my 4-year-old nephew speaks more clearly to me, and he doesn't even like to talk to people, you know?
I also think you have something, like you were saying, feeling more comfortable. And so your voice may be more relaxed, and you feel comfortable speaking how you are. In some of that research, they actually talked about that the acquisition of your voice or any change that may occur, because some people say that their friends say, oh, when you came out, you started talking different. But they say sometimes it can be the community that you surround yourself by. And so you take on characteristics of that, or you feel comfortable within your community, so you don't feel like you have to change your voice. And that
I think you start finding yourself. You start kind of accepting it. Now, one thing I want to point out is that this, again, don't conflate one with the other, is that, you know, like when people such as like our community, like the white boy community, picking up Black accents, that isn't cute. Don't do that, you know? And it's like a lot of, you know, and a lot of people say, oh, that's my voice. So I was raised in an area where I was one of very few white people at all, especially being a little white kid. It wasn't an issue. Like, I mean, and you know, nobody made fun of, none of the kids, like when I was in those years, there was never an issue. It was never my Black friends that made fun of my voice. I didn't talk like them, and they didn't talk like me, and I couldn't talk like anybody because I needed speech therapy, but they never made fun of me. My classmates never made fun of me. The kids in my neighborhood, it was weird because I went to a very small school, and I remember a lot of my classmates, like we were probably more 50-50 split, but in my neighborhood, there's one of very few white kids, and I don't remember that being a problem. But when I went to Florida or lived in areas where, like the neighborhood I grew up in Florida as a teenager was mostly white kids, and we were in the trailer park, and they were the ones that would just like say something about my voice. It was always, and when I was asked if I was bullied by counselors and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, by white kids.
Yeah, you probably have noticed this, or I know Justin and like Gabe have noticed this, but I don't do this on purpose. But like if I'm ordering something on the phone, or like
I know exactly what's coming.
I'm talking to something, my voice changes. Like Justin the other day was actually saying that we were talking, me and Gabe and him, and the first time I ever did that, I like was putting in a to-go order at a restaurant, and he was like, your voice just went like, yeah, can I have 2 burritos and whatever. But I wasn't doing it on purpose. And also I'm kind of weird because like, so I guess I have that voice, I have this voice which is just like comfortable and I guess lazy voice. I would say it does not allow enunciation, and so sometimes my things run together because I'm talking so fast, and my tongue
I hear
just
you
gets
just
lazy.
fine, but when I do playback, sometimes I'm like, I didn't notice that because I think we both talk quickly, and we've known each other for years, and we've been doing this for years.
So I have like
kind of forget.
Yeah, so I have like that voice, I have this voice, and then I have my TV voice. And so like I have a lot of things that just go on. And so sometimes some comes out and sometimes the others don't. It's like 3 personalities going on. When we do this stuff, sometimes the TV stuff comes out. And that, some people actually, again, I don't do that consciously. It just happens. I'm not purposely trying to do it in any form. I think sometimes I change my voice when I'm ordering something because I try to be more clear, slow down so that they can actually hear what I'm saying. So I was going to ask you, have you ever noticed in a lot of TV and movies, and even just thinking like animated films, that when we assume a gay character, even though at this point they're not gay, but they're very effeminate. So like
always.
You have like Scar and Wreck-It Ralph, and they're always the villain.
And yeah, also when it's a character that you would never expect to be gay, it is the guy who's playing that character is so clearly straight. Like that's why it was a twist. And it's like, that is so disingenuous. Come on, Ryan Murphy. Oh, sorry.
I think that stereotype, and again, we started this at the beginning talking about the gay voice and how it's a stereotype. It's not actually a real thing. It's a stereotype that has been put up on the community. But it can also be with things like this, like the film and TV and how things are portrayed that perpetrate that stereotype.
Yes.
Is can be harmful ultimately, because there's some people in the community who do have to change their voice for the sake of just like safety and survival. I think even, back in the past, even for like to have jobs, certain jobs, like if you think in TV.
When I worked in cars, when I worked for Pontiac, I was literally told off for my voice. Never by a customer. Yeah. Management had no problem. Other sales guys, they were fucking evil to me about my voice. They're like, you're so effeminate. There was our finance manager, who's also my namesake. He was gay, but he specifically talked a certain way to avoid, because he was like, they'll make fun of me. They'll act this way. I care so much about what they think. And I'm like, wow, you really do care.
Yeah.
My scars aren't visible now, but they were more visible when I was younger. So I got over caring, because if I didn't, I would not have survived. I just wouldn't have. So voices are such a big thing. And when you tell somebody you don't like their voice, or you make fun of their voice, you really do silence people. And it's amazing because we all have kind of unique voices. And I think that is something to be celebrated, not hidden.
Thinking like my background in TV, in the past, you would never have an anchor or anything like that who would speak in an effeminate voice. You just wouldn't have that. I do know now that there are a good handful of people who speak effeminate, and they're on air, anchoring, reporting. And so I think that's a great thing.
And they're so fun to watch.
Yeah,
I think you know, there were so much of their personality.
Yeah. When I was in TV, I mean, I wasn't ultimately involved in making final decisions on hiring, but I did see lots of, demo tapes that people would send once they got out of college and whatever. And you'd have a handful of guys who spoke effeminately, and they just would not be even considered because the people who make the decisions, were wanting a certain look, and they didn't want that effeminate look, that they thought that was a bad thing, a negative thing for viewership. But I think, ultimately we found that that's not true, and that people in general are very accepting in certain areas and certain markets. Obviously, it's still an issue in places.
There's a lot of hatred leveled at people for how they sound. And also, I think for you, like being on TV is at how people look. Like I watched this incredible story about a woman who someone had sent a really nasty comment about her weight. So instead of ignoring it, she took it, made it a story, and talked about, basically explained it. And I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately what we, in this conversation, to wrap it up, is that you shouldn't have to change your voice. You should just own the voice that you have. Just kind of much in the same way as we've talked in many of the past episodes about dressing the way you want. So basically, speak the way you want. Don't change your voice. Dress the way you want. Be yourself. Be proud of it. And I think that's an exciting thing. One thing, if you want to learn more about the gay voice, you can check out this documentary. Filmmaker David Thorpe did this documentary called Do I Sound Gay?, in which he talks to therapists, speech therapists, and talks to different people, talks to some people that are in the entertainment industry who are gay, and how that they've worked with having what we would say is a sound gay voice. And it's a really insightful documentary, I think. So if you want to learn more about this or check that out, it's a great thing. And we'll have that in the show links on our website. And also, again, you can subscribe to our email, and the link will also be in that. But we thank you for joining us for another episode here, and we hope that you have enjoyed it. And until next week, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
So, hey guys, we want to remind everyone that you can keep in touch with us on all of our social media channels, whether that is Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can do all of that at the ComaCast.
And we definitely love to interact and hear from all of our listeners. All of this is not possible without you guys.